There we go. Strong to the finish, as we always say about our sports team. Strong to the finish. The Milwaukee Brewers with a convincing 7-2 win in Pittsburgh. They've won 2 in a row, and we're getting closer and closer to playoffs, which start in 6 days. We'll talk about all that. And Doug Russell, our special guest, sports director at Iheart Radio, longtime sportscaster in the Milwaukee area. We'll get to all that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, the Milwaukee Brewers, sure, they have some question marks and all that. But, you know, the bottom line is, hey, just let's take our chances next week. The Brewers do not, as I've said, do not have to take a back seat to any of those teams that they start off playing next Tuesday. Not one. And by the way, as we were speaking, the Dodgers are getting beat again. So we'll get to all that. Philadelphia lost their game as well. But for now, we're probably going to focus on the wild card until that gets really serious, a 1 or 2 seed. The Brewers have threatened on that before, but have not got close enough, I think, where we can really take it seriously here the last week or so. My name is Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin, proud voice of Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. This episode brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right state can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today at Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. 7-2 Brewers win. And I think maybe these last 2 games here, the come from behind win on Sunday and the win on Tuesday night, kind of settle some nerves with us Brewers fans. It's been one of those seasons. You know, it's been one of those. They're called the Cardiac. The Brewers organization has called themselves the Cardiac Kids, but I feel like every Brewers team is always the Cardiac Kids. I mean, that's just the way baseball is. They have an ability to cut your heart out in just a second. We know that. And they have the ability during the regular season to just be great. And yeah, convincing win. Now, a couple of things I would say regarding this. Tobias Myers did not have a great start. He went 4 innings, had some loud contact as well. But what I saw on Tuesday night with Colin Ray coming out of the bullpen once again, I think this is the way the Brewers are going to go. I don't think Colin Ray is going to make a start in the postseason. Murph was asked this after the game on Tuesday night, and he kind of quivered and hemmed and hawed and all that. And then kind of said in so many words, that might be where we're at with Colin at this point. That might be his role. He kind of slyly said that. So, and that's not a bad thing. Colin Ray coming out of the bullpen. So I think this is how they're going to line up next week. I bet you they go Freddie number 1, Myers at 2, and Montes at 3 with Colin Ray on standby. Colin Ray on standby. We'll see if Savale gets activated or not. There's going to be a surprise or two that's not activated to the postseason. I say surprise, the guy who's been a contributor, and it might not be Savale. But Freddie, Myers, and Montes, I think it's going to be, and I think we just got an indicator Tuesday that Colin Ray is going to be a bullpen guy for these guys coming out. And Montes, it wasn't one of his better outings at all. There is a little concern with me with pitching a young guy in the postseason. Not that Myers can't handle it, but, you almost rather go with a veteran. But you know what? The bottom line is it's getting wins. And guys who can go out there and just flat out ball, and are not going to, they're not going to fall apart out there. I almost used a bad word there, which I cannot do on Locked On Brewers. They told me no bad words. So you hope that Myers doesn't do that. I don't think he was. Interviewing him for most of the season, being part of the media pack around him, seems pretty cool. Just watch his interview tonight in Pittsburgh. He wouldn't talk about his role really. Just, one of those things that he just wants to help the team wherever he can. But just want that number 2. Freddie's going to be number 1. There's no displacement of that. I think Murphy is going to throw his weight around. Nothing has been behind Peralta. Nothing has been determined just yet, but I'd be stunned if Freddie is not number 1. Myers 2, Montes 3, and maybe even Montes on standby, Savali if he's activated, and of course Colin Ray. There will be a starter on standby on one of those two. Somebody they can count on, hopefully, just in case it's a short start for one of those guys. I'm getting a little just thinking about that series next week. It's been such a fun season. I can't help it, but I get a little sweaty when I think that maybe a week from today, the season is over. And I don't want to be y'all to think anything negative there. And that vibe, what I think it has nothing to do with, how the Brewers are going to do. We have no power over that. Nothing at all. Okay. I'm not part of the team. I'm just a media guy. But from what happened last year and the past exits, part of me gets I'd feel better if it was a best of 5 series. When it's that short series, that best of 3, anything could happen in those best of 3s. The NBA back in the late 70s, their first round, the playoffs, they used to have a best of 3. And you saw a lot of upsets. And same thing here. You lose that first game, okay, then you're on the ropes, okay? You win that first game, the other team is on the ropes. But, man, I really wish this wild card round was at least a best of 5. A best of 3 really gets me a little nervous because, you worked so hard. The first round should not be a best of 3. Thinking back, how dumb was it in 2019 when it was a best of 1? Okay? When the Brewers lost in Washington. You play 162 games. Baseball's a series sport. I think they should somehow make this a best of 5. I was listening to Tim Allen and Pipe Bomb tonight on their post-game show, and Pipe Bomb made a great point. He talked about, maybe that the season should start a little sooner and warm weather spots. Fantastic idea. I've kind of mentioned that before. Why are we playing early? Why are we playing late March, early April games in Minnesota and Chicago in spots like that? Let these geniuses who make up the MLB schedules, okay, these geniuses who do that, let them figure out a way where we can start the season a little early. Why not start it in late March? We're ready for it. The NCAA tournament is like in its second and third weekend. Let's get the baseball season going, starting it a little early. All right, let's start this maybe the third week of March. I'd have it started in warm weather cities. That way, because, the way they do it right now, we don't want to be playing baseball through mid-November. That's just stupid because there comes a point in the baseball season where it gets lost with everything else going on because November comes around, you got college football in the thick, you got NFL, you got, even college basketball starting up, you got everything going on. You want baseball, not that it's going to be standalone at the end of October, but in October between baseball and the NFL, those are the two big, in college football, the two big things going on. So you don't want to push the season deeper into November, but my gosh, Pipe Bomb right on. Let's start this season a little earlier and play some warm weather series early in the season out in California, where it's nice, in Arizona and Florida, Texas. Let's use those warm weather spots. Even if we got the Brewers opened up with the Mets last year, sometimes in March it's really nice in New York and Philadelphia as well. But let's get these games out of the northern cities and open the season earlier and in big markets. And we don't have to sweat out a best of 3. That's my biggest fear because I feel like the Brewers, if you have a bad 2 days or anybody has a bad 2 days, you're done. You're done. But baseball is played on a series. Brewers had a bad 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday against Arizona, and looked like they were on their way to another bad one on Sunday. Bounced back, and now they're playing well again. I just think, like last year, they had 2 bad days against Arizona, 27 hours, and they were done. All right. We'll talk about a little bit of the Brewers playoff record coming up next. The Brewers playoff record, really interesting. We'll get to that next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. FanDuel, they're the number one sports book in America for a reason because, hey, man, you look at the lines, fair lines, live play-by-play, live betting. You could check out stats right on there, anything you want. Here's how FanDuel's got going on right now. When you place a $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So whether or not you win or lose that bet, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets at FanDuel. So NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel on America's #1 sportsbook. They got the NFL. They got all the sports. They got tennis, anything you want. But, hey, you see something in the middle of the game you like, you might want to live bet it. You can do it all on FanDuel. Again, get started, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. When you place your first $5 bet, they'll automatically put the $200 in your account. Go to FanDuel.com and check it out. Look at the ads, look at their beautiful page and all that. And get ready. Again, pretty soon, like in end of the month, we're going to have all the sports coming together, and there's going to be a lot for you on there. But, hey, the baseball postseason is coming up next week. Maybe you like Milwaukee. Go to FanDuel.com, get your $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Talk to you about Booking.com as well. Booking.com. Let's say you're going to go on the road with the Brewers. Maybe you want to go on the road and see the Brewers play. Well, here's your opportunity with Booking.com. They can figure it out for you. Let's say you want to go to Philadelphia if they advance out of this wild card round, or Los Angeles against the Dodgers. Two great baseball city. Well, Philadelphia is a great baseball city. Los Angeles, it has got warm weather. I don't think Los Angeles is a great baseball city by any means. But hotels, flights, anything you need, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, maybe resorts, so much more on Booking.com. Maybe this winter you want to take a little golfing trip. Book it all on Booking.com. And Booking.com delivers exactly the right stay for you. They can help you book your stay that's close to your home team's rival, the Phillies in Philadelphia, the Dodgers in Los Angeles. And you know what? Visiting those cities, great and all that. You visit the city, you have fun during the day, you go to the game at night. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals, in this case, the Dodgers and the Phillies in the postseason. Booking.com, booking.yeah. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. All right. I get a lot of questions about what the biggest Brewer deterrent is, and Doug Russell is going to be joining me from Iheart Radio, the sports director there. You know him. I've been on the radio with Doug. We've done shows together. We've done everything. We've known each other for 35 years. Big Russ, as I always call him. Russ will be joining me coming up here in a couple of minutes. Heard a guy also on Tim's show tonight said, a caller said he spent $9,000 with playoff tickets and World Series tickets. And you get your money back if they don't go whatever games are not played. And I was thinking, what a great investment. Because to spend $9K, it would be worth spending $9K to see my team win the World Series. So you get sticker shock by thinking, holy cow, $9K for all the complete strip of the postseason tickets. It's probably for two people, $9K, I would guess. Probably 2 or 3 people, maybe 2. But wouldn't it be worth it? When you give up $9K to see the Brewers win the World Series and be able to see them win all those games, it's a thrill of a lifetime. Hey, that's what we're all here to enjoy our favorite team, the Milwaukee Brewers. Absolutely. $9K to watch all my teams play in the postseason. And if they win, now if you spent the $9K and they got the game 5 of the World Series and they flushed out, that would be disappointing, but it'd be a heck of a memory, though. Heck of a memory. All right, the all-time playoff series. The Brewers' all-time playoff record is 21-30. But since 2008, they're 12-22. This is according to the Twitter account Brew Crew Scoop. Since 2008, they're 12-22. Since 2019, this is when the Brewers have really fallen off in the postseason. 2019, because they haven't won a series since the Colorado series in the divisional series in 2018. Since 2019, when they got beat by Washington, the Brewers are 1-8 in the postseason. Their only win, I recall, against Atlanta in the divisional series in 2022. 1-8 in the postseason. Not good. 12-22 since 2008, 21-30. But let's not let past performance dictate future results for the Milwaukee Brewers. We got to keep telling ourselves that. All right, Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to talk to Doug Russell from Iheart Radio. We're going to throw a few things off Big Russ coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Game Time, one of the great sponsors here on Locked On Brewers. Game Time, where I get my Brewers tickets. You know, I've told you I've gotten seats behind the dugout. My kid wanted when the Blue Jays were in town, he wanted tickets behind the dugout. We got them for really cheap, and you can get last minute tickets from Game Time. That's the way it works. They have just a variety of things. All you got to do is click on where you want to sit, and they'll show you, and you'll get a view of your seat, the lowest price guaranteed. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy the tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Say you spend $70, you're going to the Mets series this weekend, spend $70, you get $20 off your first purchase. But it's really easy to use. You're going to get all your fees up front. So when you look at what the pricing is going to be, they don't keep adding and adding and adding. It's like some apps. Game Time, it's all there, all up front. They got the lowest price guaranteed, the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. But you can't get the tickets unless you go onto the Game Time app, you create the account, and again, of course, use that promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It is game time. It is also great to get Doug Russell, longtime colleague, worked together, a few different stops as well, joining us here on Locked On Brewers, a guy who could relate back to the 80s. We'll talk about Hey, Russ, how you doing? Appreciate you.
Doing all right. Thanks for having me on, Chuck. I always appreciate coming on with you.
Absolutely. And Russ, the Brewers bounced back. They had those 3 lousy games against Arizona, got the come from behind 10-9 win on Sunday, day off in Pittsburgh. It's like, okay, let's finish up these 6 games strong here. Convincing win. I've always said I want to see this team going headstrong. Sure, you got to shut your pitching staff and all, but you got to go in feeling good about yourselves too.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think that we've seen teams that kind of back into the playoffs. If there's one, area of trepidation that history kind of shows us, maybe isn't always great when the Brewers clinch really early and then they go into October feeling really good about themselves, but they may not be as sharp as perhaps fans certainly would have liked, or the players or the front office or anybody for that matter would have liked to have had them, show how sharp they are. But this is still a team, and it was in danger on Sunday when they were down 8-0 after 2.5 innings. But this is still a team, the only team in baseball that hasn't lost 4 games all season long. And, I was talking to Drew Olson about this, my colleague over at 97.3 The Game, and I disagree with him. He said, it's a meaningless statistic. It's not a meaningless statistic. It's a statistic that shows that you have avoided the perils of a 162 game season. Now there's still, a few games left to play, but this is a team that's going to probably go into the postseason without having had that, real long sustained hiccup. They weren't very good in July. Okay. But they were able to sustain that. They still ran away with the division, and they played sound fundamental baseball all season long. And so are they the strongest team in the postseason? I don't know that you can make that claim. You look at the payroll, and they're certainly not the strongest team in all of baseball, but what you have seen is a team that believes. You saw, when Pat Murphy gets the Undaunted t-shirts that are printed out, and I asked Rhys Hoskins this when the champagne was flying a week ago. I said, what does Undaunted mean to you? And it's the belief that we have in ourselves that we are worthy of being a team that plays deep into October. And the culture that Pat Murphy has been able to build for a team that most thought was going to be in last place, it's just really remarkable what this club has already done. And now I know Brewers fans, and I think everybody in Wisconsin who cares about this baseball team wants to see them take it that next step further. But man, when February and March rolled around, nobody thought, maybe except for the people in that clubhouse, thought that they would be in a position to have an opportunity to play deep into October.
Doug, they got the 90 wins on Tuesday night.
That's crazy. That's nuts.
I thought they'd have a shot at getting to the playoffs, but I didn't think they'd get there by 90 wins or 90 plus wins. It's going to hurt out, hopefully.
No, 90. Yeah. I was hoping for 73, 74, maybe 75.
You had the bar set low.
I did, because this is a team. I mean, look, what were the sure things going into this season? Your 2 best pitchers from last year and the last several years were gone. one because of injury, one because they traded him. So Freddie Peralta goes from being a number 3 to a number 1. And then you look at all of the other pitchers that they've had to cobble together, guys like Tobias Myers, guys like Aaron Savali, Frankie Montes coming over in a trade from the Reds. We all talk about Pat Murphy being the manager of the year, and I think he's going to run away with it, and he should run away with it. How about the job that Matt Arnold and his staff did? Not only getting those guys like Savali and like Montes, but also the foresight in letting Jackson Churio work through his early struggles at the major league level. And then when he flourishes, he's just one of the best players in baseball. Oh, by the way, he's not even old enough to drink yet, so they had to put non-alcoholic beer at his locker in the clubhouse during the champagne celebration on Tuesday. So, 90 wins.
Yeah.
I never in my wildest dreams did I think 90 wins were on the table for this team.
No, I don't think none of us did. Tobias Myers, some other pickups along the way as well.
And Devin Williams, the best closer in baseball, gone for half the season. We could talk more about the injuries. They lose Christian Yelich, an all-star starter, just a little bit halfway through the season, and he was having an incredible bounce-back year. He was rightfully a starter in the all-star game. Then he goes out with a back injury, and he's lost for the rest of the season. It's just what this team has been able to do with the injuries and the financial constraints that have been, part of this organization's DNA for seemingly forever. The job is just incredible. The front office, the managers, the players, everybody's just done an incredible job.
Well, how we're trained as sports fans here in Wisconsin, and you and I in the media, but let's face it, we're also fans as well. We're trained to when our teams get to the postseason. Oh boy, I think all season long, and we saw it on Twitter. Oh, here's the Brewers aren't going to do anything in the postseason. And anytime they went through a little bit of slide, even that slide this past weekend against Arizona, what do you think would be their biggest deterrent into not making a deep run in October?
Well, I still look at their pitching staff, and it was good enough in the regular season, but it's not great. I mean, Myers' ERA is over 3, and he's got the lowest ERA of anybody in the starting rotation. I mean, Freddie Peralta was good, but he wasn't a great number 1.
Wasn't great.
It wasn't great. Colin Ray had his moments, but his ERA is, like 4.2 or something like that. Savali's been very good, but his ERA is hovering around 4. The pitching staff isn't great, but they're able to cobble enough together to get to 90 wins. They certainly have shown that they can swing the bats, but if there's one thing that gives me pause about the postseason, it's where championships are won. It's won with pitching and defense. I think they've got the defense part of that equation, but I don't know that they've got the pitching part of the equation.
Well, Doug, I already said I'm going to go out with Freddie, Myers, and Montes as my first 3.
Yeah. Nope. Same.
You're going to go the same way. Okay.
Maybe Savali. I mean, Colin Ray, I think is valuable in long relief. Maybe same with Savali. If I'm picking one guy to have a spot start, if you need somebody to have a spot start, I'm probably going with Savali over Ray. And it's not anything against Ray. I just think Ray probably has a little bit more versatility than Savali does in that realm. But yeah, I'm going Peralta, Myers, and Montes as well. Those absolutely.
My favorite part about this team is the back end of the bullpen. You get through 7 innings and you get the McGill in the 8th and you get the Williams in the 9th inning. I feel pretty good about my chances. If those guys can't hold on to the lead, and that's on us.
Yeah. And, Yoel Payens had some hiccups earlier in the season as well, but he's a big arm that comes out of that pen too. Hobie Milner, when he was in there he does some nice things. Jared Koenig does some nice things in a lot of different ways for the pitching staff. And then if you can get to Devin Williams, I mean, you mentioned Trevor McGill, the job that he did as the closer in the first half of the season, really, really remarkable. In no small way, it kind of gives me maybe some Malik Willis vibes there. Just somebody who steps in for somebody who's supposed to be and has shown that he can be a superstar, and making it work and kind of saving the day, if you will, no pun intended. And then, like I said, if you can get to Devin Williams with a lead, you feel pretty good about that. But I mean, this whole team is honestly, outside of Devin Williams and the injured Christian Yelich, Rhys Hoskins has made a name for himself, but that was from his days in Philadelphia. This is a bunch of no names. Now, Jackson Churio's making a name for himself. But other than that, these are guys that the average baseball fan doesn't even have the slightest clue about. And I think half of these guys could walk down Wisconsin Avenue and not be recognized.
Well, you can go to bars in central Wisconsin and have them name 5 Brewers, Doug, and they might not be able to do it. This isn't a recognizable team like the 82 Brewers or even some
like
of
the guys
Brewers.
behind me. Remember?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, those guys were super. I mean, they were superstars. Those are Hall of Famers. Brewers don't have any Hall of Famers on their team right now.
No, they didn't. Barely got an all-star from the offensive side. Willie Adames is the leader, and I think maybe if there's anybody who's kind of been in the Brewers spotlight, or maybe the face of of course, Churio, of course, but I'm talking about a veteran guy who's been around a little bit. And Willie hasn't been around a great deal, but he has been. Willie Adames has had a great year. Who do you think? And I think he would be my Mr. October. That's the guy I think if this team is going to make a deep run offensively, I'd like to see him get on a roll. Who's your pick to be Mr. October?
I think that's a good choice. Maybe I might go with William Contreras.
Okay.
Just because he's been so steady for so long. And, the guy I just mentioned, Rhys Hoskins, who has postseason experience with the Phillies. He's played in the World Series. I mean, Willie's played in the World Series with the Tampa Bay Rays before he came over with the Brewers as well. So they've got some guys who played deep into October and played in the World Series. Mm-hmm. But those are kind of the guys that I look at saying, you know what, you've been there. You may not have been the number one guy on your team when you got there, but help show the way. Because as we all know, I mean, we alluded to the 82 Brewers. How many years ago has that been? That's been 42 years.
Too long.
It's a lifetime. It's a lifetime. I mean, there are kids who were born after 1982 that have grandchildren now. So it's time. I don't know if it's this. I don't know if this is the year. They keep getting bites at the apple, but strange things that nobody thought the Diamondbacks were going to make it last year. Nobody thought the Phillies were going to make it the year before that. When October rolls around, it's how well you're playing. Mm-hmm. And once, the playoffs begin, once the postseason begins, literally anything can happen because we've seen anything can happen.
Yeah. You mentioned Rhys Hoskins. I was saying a couple of weeks ago, I said Rhys is still going to be a factor in this thing, and of course he's kind of heating up a little bit. He's starting to come around a little bit, and I think he'll have some big moments in October. Sal Frelick's another guy who's starting to get on a roll. What's your
Garrett Mitchell's been a nice, he's had some nice contributions,
and they've had to depend on him in the middle of the order, which they probably haven't. And I think another big weak spot on this team is, like the middle of the order, some guy to fill in for Christian Yelich. They didn't get a big bat to replace him. Do you think that is a deterrent on this team, or do you think there's enough in the middle of that order to cover up for Yelich?
It's a big bat. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask of anybody. When Yelich was kind of going down with the back injury, I mean, I know it happened before that, but Jackson Chourio really started to take off a little bit. I don't know. I don't think there's a correlation there or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But when his back started to fail, that's when Jackson Chourio became an inferno at the plate. His defense improved. Everything about his game improved with the early season struggles that I think maybe made a lot of Brewers fans nervous. I mean, and the one thing that I love about Pat Murphy is how honest he is when you ask him a direct question. And, we all asked him, what do you see from Jackson Chourio? He's like, he was a young man making a lot of mistakes. He's still 20 years old. Let's be patient. And that patience has paid off. So can you make up for the loss of Christian Yelich? I think it's going to be a number. It's going to be on a number of guys. It's going to be on Jackson Chourio. It's going to be on Joey Ortiz. It's going to be on Blake Perkins. It's going to be on Garrett Mitchell. All of these guys have to kind of collectively come together and try to, between all of them, begin to try to put together what Christian Yelich was able to do in the first half of the season.
Russ, before I let you go, I haven't seen Just a Bit Outside. You haven't. Probably we're bound to see.
I know. What you should have you should have a podcast outing. If you have a podcast outing for it, I will come.
Well, there we go. Because again, we relate to that. It was 42 years ago. Why do you think this is so popular? This thing is exploding. It's now going to be at cinemas around the state. A few of them. Most of the people, a lot of people who are going to this movie, not most, but a lot of people who are going to this documentary weren't born then, yet they're going to see this documentary on the Brewers.
Because this was a team that resonated with Milwaukee. This is a team that, I tell the story of my story of 1982. Everybody who was around and was a Brewers fan growing up in Wisconsin, not even necessarily southeastern Wisconsin, but I grew up in Waukesha, as you know. Mm-hmm. And I was 9 years old. It was my first year in the Brewers Pepsi fan club. And, I was down in my basement. I was looking for something else earlier, right before I came on with you. And I came across the full 1982 set of What's Brewing magazines.
Oh, there we go.
Still have them. I am never getting rid of them.
Oh.
They are a priceless heirloom. And, you just remember all of those great times going to County Stadium with my dad. My mom would pack up, half the kitchen for us to take into the ballpark because you could do that then. So it was me, my dad, and my brother. My dad would buy a general admission seat. $5 got you 6 tickets. I mean, this was the deal. This is how they hooked us.
Yeah.
It was, as my light goes out, it was $5, and you could get a year-long subscription to What's Brewing magazine. You could get some sort of trinket. I think in 1982, it might have been a batting glove or something like that. That was just
a coupon for free Pepsi too.
Yeah, something like that. It wasn't great or anything like that. It was $5, and it was something that you could do yourself. And hey, there we go. And it was something that a kid could purchase himself with his grass mowing money.
Yeah.
So it hooked me. And you could name any player on that team, and I could tell you what uniform number they wore. Mark Brohart, number 29, Marshall Edwards, number 16, Ned Yost wore number 5. I mean, just on and on and on and on and on down the line. It was our team, and we loved them, and that's why it resonates. And they were so successful. They had 5 Hall of Famers on that team, Chuck.
I know. I hear you. The What's Brewing magazine, I have one on my wall here, and I'm waiting to see Juan Nieves to get it autographed. Nova hitter of What's Brewing. Did you have that copy of 87?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Of course. It was the glossy cover. They had like the newspaper covers for a long time. And then when Nieves threw the no-hitter, it was like a glossy cover.
Yeah, I got that sitting right behind the. I'm waiting for me.
And then Don Sutton had one with the special Ks with like the baseballs with the spelling out the 3,000.
Yes,
I remember that one.
K against Cleveland, and that was Gorman Thomas's return to Milwaukee that night in 1983. I remember being there
against the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah. Russ, thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming on.
Anytime. This is always fun. I love coming on with you, Chuck.
Doug Russell, Sports Director, Iheart Radio in Milwaukee and Madison, 97.3 The Game, WIBA in Madison. My name is Chuck Freeman. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Have yourself a great Wednesday, everybody.